A lot of people will fight to the teeth, dude. They will fight they'll go all in.
They can't let go of the version.
No, because they bought into it.
The version of you that makes decisions with fear, or the version of you that makes decisions with love.
Because people get connected to the experience, identify with it. They think this is who I am because of what happened to me. The victimization part, right?
If you asked me, I would say probably 5% of the population or less live their lives being aware.
I'm not perfect, but I'm hyper aware of the bullshit that comes up. I want to hold myself to a high level of responsibility and accountability, so I have to show up. I'm leading people through my own actions and non-actions, right?
Many people don't have a sense of purpose, and they don't have the type of purpose that forces change. What do you do in that instance?
So it's scary to leave something behind, but it's also scary to create this new future. In order to create this other version of yourself, you have to choose what kind of pain you want to experience. Choose your pain.
Hello, Rob. Thank you for making it today. I know that you're working on a couple of different things. Why don't you tell us shortly about what you have been doing for the past few years? I know that you and we met about 2 years ago. And I always see you at the office. We work in the same office building. We go to the same gym. I always say hi to Rob at the gym. He's been seeing me more often there recently in the past 6 months. Tell us what you've been working on, Rob.
Yeah, well, thank you, Duran, for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, man, so I am a conscious creation coach, and essentially I help people identify their lies and their bullshit, the illusions that we all create for ourselves, and I help them break them down so they can align with what they really want. And so for the last 10 years, I have been obsessed with this work. First, discovering the power of your subconscious mind, read a book called The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy, Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, and a few other different esoteric books that have to do with the mindset. And when I discovered that our reality is just a reflection of what we're projecting, what is in our minds, what we are telling ourselves all day. Again, a lot of the shit we're telling ourselves are lies. I started to take an honest look at my own life, and I was like, God damn, dude, I am full of shit, and this is why my reality looks like shit. And it really did back then. And so I went hard in the paint on myself and started to get to work on changing my self-talk, noticing when I was losing my temper, noticing when I was complaining a lot, taking note of how often I was going into my past and replaying my past and feeling guilty and shameful. And so while I started doing this work, I started to feel more free and more liberated, also at the same time a little overwhelmed because I realized like how much crap I had buried beneath me or buried in my subconscious. But it inspired me at the same time because I'm like, damn, if I've only been doing this for what, a year or two at the time, when I started checking in with myself to see the progress, and I'm like, man, I let go of a lot of crap here. How much further can I go? There was this hope because of how much of a douchebag I used to be and where I was at just after a couple years. And I started sharing some of this work with my daughter. At the time, my daughter, she's 16 now. At the time, this is back in 2012, 13, a lot younger, probably what, 5, 6 years old. I started sharing with her certain perspectives on like complaining, on thinking about the results that she wanted, because she kept saying, I don't want this to happen, I don't want that, but what if this happens? And so I started to kind of bring awareness to her language about what if statements and talking about what she doesn't want and how that will come about. And when she started to change her language and her thinking, it was magic, dude.
So essentially you discovered a framework
Yeah.
of optimizing your reality. And talk to us about the work that you did getting there. What was it that really bothered you? What was the concern? And then we're going to get into the coaching side of it. But I want to hear your story because we all have similar challenges. I've been through similar challenges. What was it that made you say, that's it, this cannot continue?
At the time, I was going through an addiction, cocaine addiction. And I had, it was like hell, dude. It was hell on earth. And I tried to stop many times, couldn't stop. A lot of my friends were doing it. It was in the world that I had created for myself. And I got to a point where I thought I was gonna die. And I remember sitting on my toilet, and I was in the bathroom in my apartment. My ex-wife was out in the kitchen. My daughter was out in the kitchen too as well. And I was sweating profusely. My heart was pumping out of my chest. And I'm like, this can't be it. Like, I felt like I was gonna die. I'm like, this can't be it. There has to be something else. There has to be more than this. Like, God help me. Someone help me. But I didn't want to tell anybody that I was going through this. And so when I said those words, like, God help me, and there has to be something else, I stopped sweating instantly. And that was weird as hell, because I just stopped sweating, and I felt like this like portal opened up. This, like, I don't know what it was, but like this light just kind of came through. Not a physical light, it was just the sensation that I had. And this clarity came through, like a download. And it was just kind of showing me my whole life, like what I was doing and how I kept messing up and where I was gonna end up, dead, essentially, and losing everything. And I was like, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. And then my ex-wife walked by, she's like, who are you talking to in there? I'm like, oh, nothing, I was playing it off. And I made a promise to myself, I'm gonna cut this shit out, that's it, I'm done. That was the first time where I said, I'm done. And it was after that where I had my spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening is kind of like where your ego dies, or a part of your ego dies, and you realize that your whole reality is a lie, and everything that you were doing up to this point is just bullshit. You're just going along with the program. Are you familiar with spiritual awakening? Yes. And just my whole world shattered. Things got a lot worse, but also a lot better. But yeah, that was a turning point, was the pain.
And then through that experience, of course, you went through that for a couple of times. Then you discovered or came up with this framework that worked for you, and then you started working with different people, clients,
right.
And that's what you do today.
Right. When I started to post a lot on social media, like my account at the time, this is an old account I had, blew up. And there was other accounts that I was associated with that had to do with mindset, spirituality, and I mean 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 followers. I think I got up to like 85,000 followers at that point, after a couple of years. And it was my writing. I discovered that I'm creative. I didn't know I was creative. I'd never identified.
You were not told.
I was not told, yeah. I had gotten this reading done. It was an angel card reader. And she's like, oh, you're really creative. You should explore your creativity. I'm like, I don't know if you're talking to somebody behind me, but I'm not creative. She's like, no, you are. And she gave me this whole reading, right? And I'm arguing back with her. And she even said, I don't know, why are you arguing with me? Why are you fighting with me about this? I'm like, I'm not creative. She's like, go home, sit in the corner of your room, tell that chatterbox to shut up and go to the corner and just write. She's like, just promise me you're gonna do it just this one time. I'm like, okay, fine. She's like, if nothing happens, then just let it go. You're not creative. And I'm like, fine. And so I went home, I sat down at my desk, and I said, I commanded my ego or whatever that was. I'm like, sit in the corner and shut the fuck up and let me be here and write. I'm gonna write and just let it flow. And dude, it was like something took over my hand, my body, and it just kept going and going. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And I felt it. There was something there.
And you probably see this with your clients, with the people that you work as well. Why do you think that a serious level of pain or difficulty prompts change?
We're comfortable in what we're doing, where we're at, how we're doing things. We build ourselves up, we get to a certain point, but if we want to get further, we can't take that version of us with ourselves. And we have to shed off skin. We have to let layers go and let go of attachments to reach that next level. If you're not in tune with yourself to that degree where it's like, hey, this doesn't work anymore, I have to change it up. I have to switch something up, change something up. If you're not in tune with that and you're not honest with yourself, it's humility, right? It's owning that this doesn't work and maybe I'm making a mistake. If you're not in tune with that, you can't free yourself up. You can't tap into something higher. That results in pain. And I hate to say this, but that's one of the driving factors for me, is to experience pain, to make change.
And there's a fine balance, right? You want to be confident, but you don't want to be egotistic.
Right.
You want to be open-minded, but you don't want to be 100% agreeable, right? And I think one of the challenges, you mentioned sense of purpose there. I completely understand that. When we do business, if your whole purpose is to make money, that's not going to take you to where you genuinely want to go. It's usually something deeper than money or deeper than success that actually makes you satisfied with the way that you live your life, right? So I completely agree with the sense of purpose. Many people don't have a sense of purpose, and they don't have the type of purpose that forces change. What do you do in that instance?
So this is in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
That was when I first had my spiritual awakening, and I got into juicing and all the medicinal benefits of it and how it provides all this value for all that shit, right? And so I bought a juicer, and I remember it was like $450 at the time. So I started making juices and slanging them, selling them, proper term. Started selling them. And I fell in love with the process of helping people like tap into health. I hated the part of being rejected and being told no. I was fresh to sales. I remember the first time I was told no, I think I cried under my sheets, and I was like holding myself like, oh my God, I can't believe they said no. It was fucking horrible. And I remember the work that it took to make the juices. I was like, this isn't worth it. I don't want to do this anymore. And because of the rejection, because of the labor that went into this, I was like, this isn't for me. I don't want to do juicing anymore. So there was a period of time where I felt like I had no purpose. I started to go into this depression. Some people call it the dark night of the soul. That's what I called it at the time, because just things started happening around me. People started disappearing. When I needed people to connect with and to consult with, nobody was around. My world was crashing once again. And I went for I want to say about a year and a half with no purpose, and I almost started going back to my old ways. And I had no motivation to get up, even though I had a great paying job, benefits, all this stuff. That was the only thing I had energy to do was show up. Because I felt what it was like to have a purpose, or what I thought was my purpose, I knew that there was a possibility. And my purpose came to me through a song, through a hip hop song, where it was Jay-Z called Fuck Up the World. And I'm leaving jiu-jitsu practice at the time, heading back home. I'm in this Zen state, peaceful, and I'm listening to the lyrics, and he says something like around the lines of, we keep topping what we top, yet to see a ceiling. Like, see a ceiling, right? I'm like, keep topping what we top, yet to see a ceiling. I'm like, oh, there's no ceiling. There is no ceiling, holy shit. And so I get home and I look up the domain, there is no ceiling. I'm like, oh shit, I'm gonna get it. I just kept going with the breadcrumbs, right? Following the breadcrumbs. And I'm like, well, what do I do with this now? I don't know what to do with this. It's just a what do you call it? A URL, I mean, a domain name, that's it. And so I kept asking questions. I kept getting curious about this. And then I came up with the acronym THINC. THINC. I'm like, oh shit, the person who can think for themselves, or the person who can think, would experience no ceilings, like no limits, holy fuck. And then I realized it was tied into the matrix, right? There is no spoon, right? It's not the spoon that bends, it's you, right? It's the mind, it's the person that's bending the spoon, your perception. Because like I'm understanding that this is a framework, a way of understanding myself and my reality, how there really is no spoon. There really is this reality, there is no reality. It's the reality that we project. And so I want to say that the accumulation of the pain of not having a purpose, but knowing there was a possibility for a purpose, had me search for it and dig deeper for it. And if you're not going along for the ride, then it's all good. Like, it's all good. Like, we might cross paths, we might not. You might create the life you want, you might not.
That's a challenge that I had for a long time. I've always been big on accountability, and that's actually something that comes from my parents. You know, I was raised by two elementary school teachers. Both my parents are elementary school teachers. So I grew up with accountability. Like, if you mess something up, it's your responsibility to fix it, right? And I try to enforce this accountability on other people, but my level of accountability is not the same as your level of accountability. My understanding of accountability is not the same as yours. So what started happening as I was doing this with friends, coworkers, sometimes clients, was I would become the asshole. Because I would push too much. Intentions are there, right? Intentions are great. I have the best of intentions. But you cannot hold somebody accountable who does not want to be accountable. Do you see that with your clients, people you work with as well, where the environment kind of pulls you down?
Yeah, absolutely. And to add to what you were saying about accountability and responsibility, it's something that I heavily believe in and I represent. And I don't think that we could ever be perfect in being our word 100% of the time. By design, and that's by design, where it's like, all right, if I'm going for something bigger, I'm gonna miss the mark. I'm gonna mess up. If I'm trying to get down to a certain weight, there's gonna be certain days where I hurt like hell, and I'm gonna give in to my excuses. As long as I own the fact that I was being a bitch today and I didn't show up, and I recommit to the next day or later on in the afternoon to get that workout in, then I feel like I'm following my word, right? I recommit to it, but I have to own it.
And be patient, right? It's gonna take a minute.
Yeah.
And that's what I think a lot of people are impatient with it. That's why they beat themselves up and they actually hurt the growth. They're too hard on themselves. That also, I think, stops growth.
Right, right. And to that point too, it's the being hard on yourself, it's the judgment, the self-judgment. Like, oh, I messed up. I said I was gonna do this. Oh, I'm not getting there fast enough. What's wrong with me? It's so easy to do. And I in one session, I can hear a client do it 6, 7, 8 times. And I'm calling them out on that. I'm like, hey, this is your default mode to go to, right? With the whole responsibility thing, my first session that I have with a client, I go over responsibility. It's this whole sheet, and I read it to them, they read it back to me, and I break every line down. And in essence, responsibility is just something that you stand on, right? It's not a badge of honor. There's no right or wrong in responsibility. I can't make someone responsible. You have to choose to stand on responsibility, to be in responsibility. Ownership, right? So responsibility is ownership. Can you own your shit? If you fuck up, can you say, you know what, I fucked up. I said I was gonna do this, I didn't do this. I'm gonna make sure this happens at this time. That's ownership, that's being your word, right? Same thing in relationships too. Like, hey, I could take responsibility for my part in this argument or in our disagreement. I'm sorry that I yelled at you. I'm sorry that I raised my voice. I'm gonna commit to making sure that I have control over myself moving forward. I'm gonna remove myself, right? So it's a sort of a...
That's awareness.
It's awareness,
right?
Yeah.
So that's one thing that, you know, you bring up a good topic. If you asked me, I would say probably 5% of the population or less live their lives being aware.
Yeah.
And the reason that's important for me, and you talked about responsibility, and I love that. You cannot make somebody responsible. They have to assume that responsibility. Otherwise, it's not really responsibility. They don't have any ownership. I can say, you are responsible for this room and the cleanliness of this room, right? If you don't give a shit, nobody is responsible. It doesn't matter. I always say you can pay people, but you can't make them work. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of coworkers. You can pay people, but you can't make them work. They have to decide that they have to do the work. Now, the biggest obstacle that I see for responsibility and ownership is the fact that people choose to create excuses. That's what people do. But when you create excuses, when you're kind of victimizing. And the moment that you victimize, you're not in charge anymore.
Yeah, I hear my own bullshit in my own mind, and I deal with my own excuses, and I fucking plow through them. I'm not perfect, but I'm hyper aware of the bullshit that comes up. I want to hold myself to a high level of responsibility and accountability, so I have to show up. I'm leading people through my own actions and non-actions, right? Mm-hmm. How can I fucking show up and coach people and guide people to a better place if I'm not fucking showing up, even when no one else is looking? I literally have this conversation with every single person, and I say, nobody fucking cares about your excuses. Does it fucking matter that it was raining outside and you didn't go for a run like you said you would? What does it matter? Yeah. Right? I call them big buts, right? Oh, I want to lose weight, but what? Whatever comes after the but, it doesn't make any goddamn sense. They don't understand the power of intention, the power of their word, so they just spit out shit loosely with no substance behind that. They don't understand that they're actually creating every single part of their life by their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, by unresolved shit that they're not dealing with, by not following through. I think if people understood the connection between mind and matter, and they really saw the truth that we are all creating our reality individually and collectively, I think that people would actually start moving in a different direction.
One of the biggest challenges that I have had was between instant gratification and delayed gratification, right? And this doesn't, in my opinion, this doesn't have to be addiction. Most of the time it is. Doesn't really matter what you're addicted to. You could be addicted to sugar, you could be addicted to drugs, you could be addicted to alcohol. There are different levels of addiction as well. What do you think about that relationship, how can you instill in somebody the idea, the concept of delayed gratification? Because it changes the entire decision-making process.
This is just coming from what's coming up in my mind. It's a principle, I guess you could say a belief, a principle that I live by, where an understanding, right? Time is going to pass by anyway, right? If it's going to take you 10 years, 5 years, 2 months, 3 weeks, time is going to pass by anyway, right? So why am I going to continue wasting time doing bullshit like scrolling on social media? I make time to actually do bullshit. I allow myself to have a little bit of time to fuck around, right? That's my little bit of balance that I bring into my life. Other than that, I really don't have a lot of balance. But if I understand that time's gonna pass by anyway, then I might as well just do something about it now and start putting down the puzzle pieces, start planting those seeds now. I come from a place now where I'm like, dude, I don't wanna waste any more time, right? It's kind of, actually, this is a limiting belief I just discovered for myself this past weekend, where I feel like I always have to be doing something, because for so long I wasn't doing something with the gift that I had, right? And so I sometimes work myself too much, or I exert myself too much. It's hard for me to sit still. It's hard for me to have fun sometimes because I'm thinking about the next thing to do. So with like delayed gratification, it's like, all right, I've already experienced a shitload of pain from not following through and from wasting this time, this valuable time, and burning bridges and burning relationships, leaving dead bodies behind is what I call it. So I already know what that feels like. But again, time's gonna pass by anyway. I might as well just do it now and get started. That's what helps me with delayed gratification.
I'm a fan of Jordan Peterson, and he says, if you are saying something that you know not to be true, who's the one really talking? And that always brings me to the same point, which is we do have that voice in our heads, the voice that's trying to break the discipline, break the rules, break the agreements that we make with ourselves. How can you silence that voice, or can you?
It's a great question. I love that quote too, and I love Jordan Peterson. There is a version of us that has manifested or came to birth into existence to protect us from past pain, right? Something traumatic happens, or something that we don't like happened, we got hurt. When you do that, you block yourself off from any other possibility that has to do with a human being, another experience that might be similar to that. Maybe you missed the lesson and that's why you got hurt. Maybe your ego got bruised. Now you're cutting yourself off from that, right? You're giving power to that version of you. Let's just say it's your ego or another part of your personality. You're giving power to that version of you now to step in when something familiar or anything relative to that experience comes up in your awareness again, right? So when you want to level up, that other version of us is coming into play, pulling the strings behind the scenes, saying, hey, no, bro, like, we did this last time. Remember how fucked up it was? I don't think this is a good idea. That's that voice. It's like recognizing that there's another version of you that exists that's there to protect you. And it does a damn good job at it. It's not your enemy. It's not something that you want to fight. In fact, you want to invite it in. Like, ask it questions like, hey, why do you think that this is a bad idea?
The version of you that makes decisions with fear, or the version of you that makes decisions with love.
Right.
That's the primary argument, I think, with a lot of people, is we simply cannot stop making future decisions with past emotions.
Past emotions, right? What reality do you want to live into?
Yeah.
A lot of people will fight to the teeth, dude. They will fight they'll go all in.
They can't let go of the version.
No, because they bought into it. It's so real for them, and it's helped them avoid other painful situations, but it also cut them off from other opportunities. This is a very real reality for me. How are you going to tell me that things can be different? Show me how it could be different. I can't fucking show you because you're not able to see that it can be different. You can't get out of your own way. You can't let this pain go. It was there to serve you, to teach a lesson. Most likely the lesson was to believe in yourself and see, hey, I needed this to perhaps put up boundaries, or to respect myself more, or to walk away from something that I knew was bad, but I stayed in it until it just crumbled, right? But if you can't look at the situation as a lesson and let go of the fact that, hey, it was here to serve you and here to build you, this isn't my identity, right? Because people get connected to the experience, identify with it. They think this is who I am because of what happened to me. The victimization part, right? That's the struggle of having people see that and let that go. But yeah, people will fight for that reality. They choose to stay in their pain because it's familiar to them. My belief is if you really want to make a change in your life, make a shift in your life, you have to be fucking real with yourself. Am I holding on to something that caused me pain in the past, that had me feel comfortable in my reality because of this ego part of myself, this other personality I created? Is this really gonna take me to the next level? Or was it just designed to keep me safe and comfortable with what I know? Most likely your answer is gonna be yes. So then how do I let this go?
Does this version of myself serve my sense of purpose?
Right. And this is the part that a lot of people experience pain with too, right? You have the pain of letting go of the past, but you have the pain now of becoming someone different or bigger or better. So it's scary to leave something behind, but it's also scary to create this new future. But again, back to the delayed gratification. Like, you've been in this place for so long and it doesn't work. Which pain do you want? The pain of staying the same or the pain of growth? Both are gonna be painful. You get to choose though. You let this go and grab onto this and pull up. But you have to let this go. If you're not willing to let this go, I can't help you. You can't help yourself. So everything that you want wants you, but it requires a different version of you to step up. And that requires you to let go of a version of you that might have made sense because it protected you, it kept you safe, it helped you stay grounded in the reality that you created for yourself. However, in order to create this other version of yourself, you have to choose what kind of pain you want to experience. Choose your pain.